Assalamu alaikum Nazreen, Ibrahim Sajid Hazira आपके पास. There's so much to talk about. There's never a dull moment in Pakistan. We can start talking about Prime Minister Imran Khan's decision, categorical denial to Americans to have any basis in Pakistan, to the whole circus that we saw in the National Assembly for a couple of days. And in between, there have been a lot of news. So we were not going to discuss any of that. What we wanted to talk about today is Prime Minister's visit to the ISI Secretariat last week. It was a very high-level visit. He was accompanied by all the federal ministers and the COAS. He was briefed there by Lieutenant General Faiz Hameed. We can all assume that they talked about some of the biggest threat. In the east, we have our neighbor, aggressive and revisionist policies in Kashmir and their oppression of minorities, of course, pose a serious threat not only to Pakistan but to our regional security. The BJP-led government has pretty much taken the constitutional right away from the Kashmiris. They have been living in their own contained prison, if you will. There's some glimpse of hope, what some would call glimpse of hope. I am personally a little skeptical of the ceasefire on line of control, but can it be lasting? In the West, despite Pakistan's all sincere and serious efforts in Afghanistan, we're getting mixed messages from their leadership, from the government, from the international players. And there's a lot of little issues that keep surfacing. If you look at our own country, a recent bomb blast in Lahore took some life. There are a lot of things happening when it comes to security of Pakistan. To discuss all of this, we've invited a very famous defense analyst, Brigadier retired Nawaz Haris. Nawaz Haris Saab has served in Pakistan Army for 32 years. Later, he was the director of financial crimes in National Accountability Bureau of Sindh. So, my question to you, Haris Saab, what do you think were the three biggest risks that were discussed in that meeting?
Actually, if you see, there are multi-dimensional risks. And this was very important. I think it was over-wanting. Because if you remember ISI, MI, then you have a special branch, FIA, IEB, they're all working in different diverging axes with their own goals to achieve. So the purpose of this conference was to harmonize their efforts, one, and also then collate and see what all we can do in the directions of hybrid war, which Pakistan is already under attack. Then you have a disinformation, EU disinfo lab, how it is to be countered, cyber attacks are there. So, and then of course terrorism. So all these things were the things with which we thought he must have discussed and he should have discussed. So these are the 4 or 5 things on which they must have formed and find some strategy that how now things are going to be worked together so that all efforts are harmonized, somebody is there to control, and then their information are all worked out, collated, and then of course actions are taken out.
Excellent. So let's unpack, because there's a lot in what you've said, right? You've of course mentioned terrorism. I'm assuming both physical terrorism as well as terrorism to our intellectual property.
What is the part of it?
Exactly. Then you're talking about the cyber risk.
Yeah.
Let's start with the misinformation, the information war, right? The 5th generation war that we all talk about. India has been somewhat exposed in the international arena after that whole EU scandal.
Right.
But it's still, they seem to be the darling of the European Union, the darling of the new US administration. That won't change. How does Pakistan pivot and positions itself to be reckoned by the world as an honest player?
You see, the most important thing we must realize is that they have already polluted the mind of USA and of course European countries because of EU disinfo lab and the way they've been working a lot. I think about 15 years they've been working on, and they invested a lot of money. So what we can do at least is, one, we harmonize our own efforts, we come on the same grid, right? And then we make a very good strategy how to counter Indian this all attack which we have. and particularly hybrid war, because Pakistan is already under attack. You talk about Chinese embassy, you talk about a stock exchange, you talk about Lahore incident. You see why it is happening when 21 to 25 of June FATF actually virtual conference being held, and during this period this incident happened in Lahore,
Right.
and that too close to Hafiz Saeed where he lives. So that means they wanted to convey still money laundering will be done in Pakistan, still financial terrorism is being done. Pakistan not been able to control them. So there is a big ground that Pakistan should be kept in grey list or they should go on the blacklist. So who are the beneficiaries? Anything happens, first you realize who are the beneficiaries.
Right.
So India was the beneficiary.
Of course.
And then you must have seen the media. They played hell with this air blast. They invited me many times and I refused to go because I know what they're going to talk about it. But one thing is, then of course now they must have made a strategy that how to counter Indian hybrid and also this portal, the way they have your EU disinfo lab. So Pakistan must have decided something, and very soon we should see outcome ke how what all they have planned and how Pakistan made a strategy to overcome all these problems.
I really hope they have, and I'm sure they have. I have no doubt that Pakistan's army is very well disciplined. You know, the intelligence community is very
and
well disciplined.
And ISI is one of the best leading in the world.
Right. Now, but when it comes to our challenges, right? I mean, we've had challenges not externally but internally as well, right? When we talk about the misinformation, a good chunk of that misinformation is fed by, unfortunately, a handful of our own people, right?
You're right.
And how do we counter that narrative? How do we do more conversations like the one we are having right now?
You see, the more important thing you must realize, what is enemy narrative at present? One, that Pakistan army has defeated terrorism. One. Number two, Pakistan army name in the world is taken this very professional army, and through professionalism, single-handedly, see across the Afghanistan side, 51 countries, coalition forces, all might, all weapon ammunition, they failed to control Taliban. And we in Pakistan control terrorism almost.
Alhamdulillah.
5% still are left over, right?
Yeah.
So that is the problem. In now India realized as long as Pakistan army and people of Pakistan, they are meshed together, they have a confidence in each other, they can't do anything. Like I give you an example of Iraq, then Libya, then Syria, then Yemen, then Afghanistan, where because they controlled and they whatever they wanted they achieved because their army was weak and they overpowered them.
Absolutely.
So here they have failed. So now what they realize is break the will of people of Pakistan army, right? Create a wedge and then try to control it and pollute the mind of people of Pakistan. And that is what exactly they are doing. And our opposition, I would say inadvertently, I don't say knowingly, they are also following the same narrative. Talking about the army, talking about Prime Minister, so these are the issues.
No, you're very modest and cautious that you are saying unwillingly. I
would say, I didn't want to say, I still say that there are so many people, they are patriot, but they must understand what is against Pakistan. Otherwise, the way Nawaz Sharif, Maulana Fazlur Rahman, the language they use, and Maryam Nawaz, I think it is very clear what they and whose language they are speaking.
Absolutely. And that's on a very national scale. And you start looking at regional, whether pockets in Balochistan, pockets in Sindh, and everywhere.
That's what they are planning. You see, the point is, if you see what is happening in Balochistan, Indian leadership openly say, we are supporting separatists, and it's very easy, Balochistan ko hum alada kar denge, because Balochistan remains turbulent means CPEC delayed.
Right.
That is the point they want to have.
Here's an anecdote. बहुत पुरानी बात है, कोई तकरीबन 15-16 साल पहले की बात है. वाशिंगटन डीसी के अंदर एक इंडियन एम्बेसी के एक साहब जो है ना मुझसे मिल रहे थे. He knew that I write and in the academics. So he was very insistent कि आपका कोई बलोच दोस्त नहीं है.
Now you really banned it.
Yeah, and तो उनके हाथ जो है बलूचिस्तान में मुख्तलिफ जगहों पे भी जहाँ पे भी वो तो नज़र आते हैं, right? We all know that. The question is that how are we prepared? Are we prepared to not only push back but to gain ground? And how do we get to that challenge?
You see, Pakistan army is doing a lot over there in Balochistan. We know how much it is important, and how much it is important. Balochistan is stable means we should be able to achieve our target for CPEC. You see, we must remember we are an Islamic country, then we are a nuclear country. And if economically prosper, then we are going to take our national decisions in a national interest. Now we have to compromise on IMF, then World Bank, because they give you loan, then they give you conditions, and we have to play on their tunes, right?
Of course.
So they want the CPEC should not be there. If and Americans, you must have seen a Quad group they have made. It is Australia, Japan,
Right.
India, right? What is the purpose? To encircle China. And along with all those countries which are associated with China, they are against that also, that is Pakistan.
Right.
See, so they are very open. Now we have to ensure that we operationalize CPEC. We have raised 2 infantry divisions for this purpose,
Right.
counter-terrorism divisions. Then of course Balochistan, we are very careful now. The government is very good. The Chief Minister of Balochistan, I know him personally, excellent person, right? Then of course the interaction, they've got the cadet college, they've got the public college, they've got the university, their development, so many things are happening, and army and government taking a lot of interest over there, and of course Corps Command is over there. Then there are these, they talk about say, missing peoples. They are not missing, they are disappeared in Afghanistan intentionally by RAW and those 1% elements who are against anti-Pakistan. So we are going to be giving a lot of incentives, financial assistance, because you see there are only 25 to 30 lakhs Balochis, right? They are our brothers, and
Absolutely.
out of there I would say 98% are true and patriot Pakistan.
Exactly.
There's no doubt
Exactly.
about it. 1% whom RAW and everybody is controlled. So those are the person. I think very soon you will see totally it is cleared. It is in Pakistan trust, and of course Gwadar port, then it comes up and it is operationalized. See how much job opportunities
Right.
will be given to these people, because generally you are bought when you are poor, you have no resources, you are not having some daily means to educate your children, to get health hospitalized. So if you get all facilities, what happens, I'll give an example, anywhere in Balochistan, if there's a boy he is a graduate, he is not having a job, he has old parents, his sisters are married, he has to give education to son, brother, right? What he will do? He will have to, he will
course,
fall prey to these
Bilkul,
people.
bilkul.
On the contrary, he got a job. Next day what parents say, do you think, okay, get him married. He has 2 children in the mainstream.
Right.
This is the economic basic problem.
And that's basically where we need to get to. And mashallah, we've made a lot of gains in last 70 years plus years. If you think about where we have come. So I think we've discussed 3 key things that from a threat perspective, of course, both of our borders, right? Both east and west borders, Afghanistan and India. And we said, there are non-traditional warfare in terms of misinformation, threat risk to our infrastructure, like power grids, train stations, traffic lights.
Absolutely.
Do you think Pakistan is ready to protect it? I mean, we can never say foolproof, because that's a fool's paradise to say anything is foolproof. But do you think are we ready to fight in this century?
We in army are given tasks, right, in aid of civil power. Let's say if the one division is in Malik Kent, right, they are given the task to carry out internal security duties of Karachi. So they have already earmarked each and every sensitive installations, right? Plans are made, plans are rehearsed, all coordination done with those institution directors and the administration jo hamari hoti hai unse, and they are very clear about it. The only thing is we have to be more mindful that every time we have to monitor. In that, we have to education those institutions, those installations in charge, that what security they have to take their own. The problem is that army can't go anywhere. Security agencies can give you information, and you will be surprised that I would say 90% all incidents are stopped, individuals are arrested before they can react. And that is a big job of the security intelligence, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw recently, Brigadier Saab, when Biden met Putin about 2 weeks ago, he handed over a list of 20 installations that he said hands off from it. Not like he was inviting cyber attacks to the rest of the America, but he says these are the 20 sites that are red line. Do you think the world eventually will get to a place where nation states will share their red lines with their enemies?
You see, do not share a red line, because then they will attack those red lines, because we respect how many enemies are there for Pakistan, right? And how there's information passed on to other countries also who are hostile to Pakistan. So that is that we have worked out. We know exactly in Karachi city which are the red lines which need to be protected either by their own organizations and augmented by police, rangers, and then of course background is army. So everything is worked out. Rest assured, army works very smoothly and nothing is beyond our eyes.
Well, on that note, I think I'm going to conclude that. Thank you very much for joining us. So Nazreen, जैसे कि हम बात कर रहे थे, risks, challenges and opportunities are part of an individual's life, a human being's life, and it is also part of a nation state. If you think about, Pakistan definitely has a risk. We definitely face challenges, but there are a lot of opportunities, alhamdulillah, as well. How well we mitigate those risks as an individual is extremely critical for our success. We pray that Pakistan's armed forces, Pakistan's security forces are well prepared and stay really prepared, so that our boundaries, our physical boundaries and ideological boundaries could stay intact. Thank you very much. Inshallah, phir mulaqat hogi. Assalamu alaikum.